Hello and welcome to Trusty Chords, the podcast which aims to celebrate music and those that create it. If you're currently looking at your calendar and thinking you've somehow lost a few days, no, today isn't Friday, but rather it's a Tuesday, which seems like as good a day as any to launch the first bonus episode of Trusty Chords. I'm also sure that right now you're thinking, hey, hasn't this podcast only been going for 7 weeks? Where do you get off putting bonus episodes into the mix? Well, the thing is, anyone who has ever interviewed an artist is likely well aware that musicians aren't always available for at least half an hour, with most available for 15 to 20 minutes at most. Since that's not enough time for a full chat and the Trusty Chords segment, this new series of bonus episodes exists to allow these artists to pick their trusty chords without the back-breaking drudgery of having a chat with me. To kick things off, we're talking to Phil Jamieson and Pat Davern of Grinspoon. If you've listened to Australian music at any point over the last few decades, then Grinspoon is definitely a name that you would know well. Launching their career in 1995, the Lismore outfit were the first group to be unearthed by the now ubiquitous program of the same name from Triple J. Just 2 short years later, they'd released their debut album, Guide to Better Living, and were heard all over the country. They followed it up with Easy in 1999, and by the time 2002's New Detention came around, the time was right for Grinner's Fever to hit. In fact, you couldn't move for hearing a Grinspoon song. Tracks like Chemical Heart, Lost Control, Rock Show, Just Ace, and Ready One are just some of their massive list of singles. In fact, most bands would dream of writing songs half as good as Grinspoon. They do it because they don't know any different. After records like Thrills, Kills and Sunday Pills, Alibis and Other Lies, 6 to Midnight and Black Rabbits, the group went on hiatus for a few years, but the appetite for more Grinspoon never went away. Now, after a run of anniversary tours in recent years, Grinspoon are back in the saddle with a new single called Unknown Pretenders, the first taste of Whatever, Whatever, which is their first new album in 12 years. Oh, and they're also supporting it with a casual 45-date tour. You know, no big deal. Needless to say, as someone whose high school, formative musical years and, well, life, to be honest, wouldn't be the same without Grinspoon, news of this upcoming record is pretty darn special. On the day of their big announcement, I was lucky enough to have a chat with Grinspoon's Phil Jamieson and Pat Davern. As always, they're lovely folks, and I'm immensely grateful for their time. I strongly recommend you to check out Grinspoon's Unknown Pretenders, and once you're done giving that a spin, have a listen to my chat with Phil and Pat, and I'll see you at the end of the episode for some general housekeeping. Phil Jamieson and Pat Davern, thank you very much for joining this episode of Trusty Chords.
Thanks, Tyler.
Thanks for having us.
Now, I dare say that most listeners who are listening to this podcast would be aware of the work that you guys have done. But for the as yet uninformed, could you guys give me a quick few words on who you are and why you're here today?
Yes, my name's Philip Jamieson. I'm 47 years old. I joined the band Grinspoon in 1995 when I was 17 in Lismore, and we have released 7 albums, and we are talking to you today to promote our first new music in 12 years. The album is called Whatever, Whatever, and it is out August the 9th, and we are touring and doing all the hoo-ha that Grinners haven't done for a minute. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I am Pat Davern, and I am the guitar player in Grinspoon. We were formed in 1995 in Lismore, and we were the inaugural Unearthed Triple J winners. And there, we went on from there, spent a lot of time in the US, got signed to Universal over there.
Oh, yeah, we did.
Came back.
We got dropped.
We got dropped, yeah, as most good bands do. And then stayed with Universal in Australia. Thank goodness. Love these people.
Yeah, they're really friendly.
Really friendly, really helpful, accommodating.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, as Phil said, about to release some first new music in 12 years. The last time we recorded a record was 2012 with Dave Schiffman in Los Angeles. And yeah, this time we recorded with Oscar Dawson.
So the phrase, you know, Oz rock royalty is usually thrown around with you guys. And that's, I mean, I feel in my opinion, it's quite a fair title to be bestowed upon you guys. But, you know, after 12 years of not releasing new music, that's a heck of a room to walk back into. So what made you guys say, you know what, 12 years, time for new music, new single, new album, let's kick off the process all over again?
I think we had we kind of had a big break in 2013 and stopped doing anything, and then in 2017 we came back and started doing, I like to call it, activating our catalog, and so going on these kind of, anniversary tours, or looking back at the material we'd recorded over the 7 albums, and I just felt we were getting sucked into a little bit of a vacuum in doing that process. It was all well and good, and it was fun and fantastic, and it was great playing those songs that people loved and maybe had shared their first kiss to Just Ace to. But in our little burning hearts, it felt like we really wanted to create, and we had and finding the way to do that was actually quite problematic, because we've all got pretty serious ideas about how songs should be in this band, and that's probably what makes it good. So Joe, our bass player, came up with an idea that Patrick, myself, and Joe, we're all the songwriters. We just bring 4 songs each. Doesn't matter what genre they are, doesn't matter how long they are, doesn't matter if they're slow, fast, whatever, and no one can argue. They're just the 4 songs, and we're doing them. And that was a really interesting and diplomatic way to approach what is the record, whatever that you will hear in August. So that was the way it kind of kicked off for us. We just wanted to, we felt we couldn't keep doing anniversary tours.
No, and we came together like pre-COVID 2020. We went into a studio in Adelaide with the idea of just getting a song or maybe an EP. But that was before we kind of decided on the process of just, splitting the songwriting between the 3 songwriters. And we kind of soon realized that we needed to find another way to do it. I mean, I'm talking more about the process of us doing the album.
Yeah.
But I think after that initial first getting into the studio and writing with each other and putting forward songs, we realized that we probably had it in us to do a whole record. And as Phil said, Joe, our bass player, was probably, a strong believer, and he was kind of made a catalyst out of it to want to do a whole record. And yeah, I think it's probably the best thing that we've done for the band since 2013.
It's also sort of funny that you mentioned, you can't keep doing anniversary tours, when this year would have been the perfect time for the Thrills Kill Sunday Pills anniversary tour. So it's
next year.
No, it's 20 years now.
Yeah, 20 years now. But we're a year late on the New Detention tour as well, though.
Of course.
Yeah. So
I mean, 21 years.
Yeah. It would have been a good time. We're putting out new music, and we'll probably play harder to follow at these shows. So it's a win-win.
Yeah, everyone's happy. Everyone leaves with a smile on their face.
I definitely think we need to have a break from activating our catalogue. We need a break.
I prefer to activate our almonds now.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. But that's not to say we'll never activate our catalogue again. But now's not probably a time for new music.
Yeah,
of course, because it's 30 years next year since Sickfest was all over Triple J and everything. So it just
gosh,
wow.
Sorry to bring these existential crises into this today. But obviously, after years of looking back, now you're obviously looking forward. So we're mainly talking about the new single because most folks haven't heard the new album yet. So what does this new music say about who Grinspoon are in 2024? Even though it was recorded, a little bit before and all that sort of stuff. The process began earlier.
Well, it was recorded basically last year in August, let's be honest. So it says that we are definitely not slowing down. It's the heaviest stuff we've ever done by far. And it's also probably the prettiest stuff we've ever done. So it's not really a shiny Christmas present under the tree. It's pretty bonkers, this record. Yeah. So that's who it says we are. We're just I guess my opinion is the strengths of this band is kind of doing whatever we want, and so that's what we've done. Previous records we've maybe been influenced by producers or A&R or whatever. We had kind of free reign to do what we wanted in that process. No one was telling us, no, this song shouldn't be on the record, or this song should be on the record. All those decisions were ours. Yeah.
And we really, when you look at it, like the 3 songwriters, we all write differently.
Yes,
very. You know what I mean? And all of us have had our time in the sun on Grinspoon records over the years. And so this one, it's just a lot more collaborative. So when you hear it, And you say, oh, that sounds a bit like Guide to Better Living, because that's because Joe wrote a lot of songs on Guide to Better Living. Or this one sounds a bit more like Alibis, which is maybe I wrote a few more songs on that. You know what I mean? It's definitely, the sound of the album is indicative in a way. I mean, it still sounds like Grinspoon, but it's indicative of this, each songwriter having their own focus, you know, rather than just being someone had more control at that point in time in our career.
That makes total sense, because it's I mean, it's always been a very collaborative band, hasn't it? It's never one person guiding the ship.
No. Yes.
But
Be my guest captain. Yeah.
Since this is the most visual audio podcast, I should point out to any listeners that Phil was pointing to himself just then. But and then obviously, you know, speaking of, you know, guiding that ship, you guys will be setting sail later this year on a 45-date tour. Now, that just seems tiring to even talk about. How the hell are you going to get through that?
Well, it's what we were built to do. Believe it or not, that's what we do. We've done it for almost close to 30 years, but due to the past 6 years, it's been mainly largest capital cities and, you know, arenas or theaters. You know, we've been doing, you know, and for me, I just didn't want to make people travel anymore. I'm like, we're going to come to you, and we're going to bring the party to you guys. I mean, we actually tried to do more dates. We tried to do Broome. We tried to do Port Douglas. Port Douglas Yacht Club has noise restrictions. So we were like, we're not Angus and Julia Stone, we're loud. So, but yeah, we tried to do more shows. But you'll notice in the routing of it, there's a Tuesday and a Wednesday, Thursday's off, and Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So it's pretty strategic of how we're doing it. But the short answer is I don't know how we're going to do it, because I don't know what the set list looks like and how many new songs we'll be playing, because some of those new songs are challenging vocally. So we'll work it out though. That's part of the fun. Like it's a great adventure. We're still really keen to do this. Not everyone does this, and we're also getting back to regional Australia, doing as many all ages shows as we possibly can, is important to us as well. So yeah.
Well, I'm absolutely stoked to see how the rest of the year sort of pans out for you guys, and you know, whether you guys will just be a quivering mess by the end of the year, just out of exhaustion. But I guess we'll see, won't we?
We will.
So we should get down to the portion of the podcast called Trusty Chords, from where it gets its name. So for those who have been listening for the last few weeks, they would be aware, basically the idea of this is we extrapolate the idea of a regular chord. So we're looking at one artist, 3 albums, and 5 songs that have influenced you. So to kick things off, and feel free, either of you, to go first here, who is one artist that would have influenced you guys the most?
Are we going to do it one at a time?
You can, or you can sort of, you know, do a bit of a, you know, tag team.
Okay. I guess I've always loved the Black Crowes. I mean, this is really hard because there's so much music. I'm 52 years old. I'll say the Black Crowes. Love them, love their band, even like their new record. But I might be in the minority there.
It's a fine record. I mean, I certainly wasn't complaining when I listened to it, that's for sure.
Good.
I like Lou Reed.
Right.
As a teenager, there was like the holy trinity for me was Bowie, Reed, and Pop, Iggy Pop. But Lou for me, and the Velvet Underground, especially as a teen, I read his biography and just influenced by his artistry and how he approached songs and the absolute raucous nature of his attitude towards his art. So yeah, Lou for me. He's complicated and also I think pretty bit grumpy at times. But seeing that he did Berlin at the State Theatre, I was lucky enough to be there, and would it be 2006? And that was the time I got to see him play. And I also was at the Alternative Nation show, famously at Eastern Creek, where he played solo in between Faith No More and Nine Inch Nails. So yeah, I think Lou Reed for me is probably the guy.
I mean, with memories like that, I mean, it makes the musical experience all the better, doesn't it?
It does, and yeah, he just looked so like those aviators I used to rock at home bake. You'll see, and that really short orange hair on Recovery. I don't know whether you see that. Like that was definitely a lot of how he looked. Yeah, just the whole thing. I mean, but you can do worse than Bowie, Lou Reed, and Iggy Pop, I think.
No, absolutely.
In your three artists, and I've just picked three. I apologize, but they were in my teens. They were the three that I. And remembering, I guess I'm 47, so in 1992 I was in year 10, and that's when Nevermind came out. So popular music for me when I was growing up was a lot of guitars. So I was pretty fortunate, I think.
And then I guess going on to the albums side of things. So let's look at 3 albums that have influenced you guys, and these can be from any artist here.
You want me to go on this one?
You go 3 albums, Pat.
Okay.
I'm gonna look up my Spotify.
Let It Bleed.
Oh, that's a good one. That's my favorite.
Sorry, you should have gone first. Tea for the Tillerman, because my parents used to listen to that ad nauseum when I was growing up, and I know every song off that record like the back of my hands. And my father passed away, unfortunately, last year, and that Longer Boats was the song that we sent him off to. So it means a lot to me, that record, but not necessarily a musical influence, but a life influence.
Absolutely, yeah.
And third one, The Cramps, maybe. I can't really pick an album, but I'm thinking the first song I learned to play on guitar was The Way I Walk, like G-E, G-E, G-A,
Yeah, right.
G-A. And I can't remember what album that was on. So I've bap out on the album name, but I remember the album, I remember the cover. So maybe I can Google that and come back to you.
No, that's completely fair. And what about yourself, Phil? Yeah, I had time to look through Spotify there and find something other than Let It Bleed.
Apologies. I guess there's no wrong answers, but an album that was released on Friday, Hit Me Hard and Soft by Billie Eilish, is an astounding piece of art. And
Wonderful,
I've
isn't it?
listened to it 7 times, and I'm going to listen to it more and more. She's a mind-blowingly great artist, and I love everything about her. I'm going to go with a bit of Bad Motorfinger. Was that what it's called? No,
Yeah,
no.
that's the album.
Was that what it's called? Soundgarden?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because Kim Tile. Well, no, he just be Kim Tile,
Great little bits.
He had that Black Sabbath thing happening where he'd just kind of go off into these tangents. I love everything about that record. And there's probably 3 Fred Again records I like, but I don't know all of their names. I can find the one I like the most though. Fred Again. Let me just give me 1 second here. It's called Actual Life, April 14 to December 17, 2020. Beautiful piece of electronic music. And it's so emotive listening to that record. And that's weird for dance music, I think. It doesn't always happen, but
it's quite amazing. Quite amazing he can be so emotive yet draw a crowd that is that energetic and so animated, because it feels like a weird contradiction between the two.
And isn't that great? Like I never thought that would happen. I saw him at Laneway with my daughter and was moved to tears. And then Phoebe Bridgers obviously makes me cry the whole set. Thanks, Phoebes. But yeah, that Fred Again record, especially that one that I just mentioned, is particularly beautiful, and it's great to dance to as well. So it ticks a few boxes. So yeah. Soundgarden, Billie Eilish, and Fred Again. What do you do?
I did Stones,
Old Man,
Cat Stevens,
Old Man,
and classic rock. Oh man,
Triple M.
And music was good.
Okay, Dad.
Young man.
And we should also look at the 5 songs each. So do you guys have any particular songs that come to mind when that prompt is issued?
The Rainbow Connection.
All right.
Can I do Emotion Sickness by Phoebe?
Sure. Not by Silverchair.
Silverchair? No, not by Silverchair. Emotion Sickness by Phoebe. Can I do?
You can do whatever you like, Phil.
I know, thank you. I'm just going to find one. You go, Pat.
Riff Raff, greatest rock and roll riff ever written.
Oh, is it?
I believe so.
What about Unknown Pretenders?
No, well, Riff Raff is definitely up there. Four Walls. I'm going to keep it on an Australian theme. Anything off Stone Age Romeos, maybe My Girl. When I was like classic, like once again talking about the first songs that I learned, Tojo and My Girl would probably. So I'll go Tojo before My Girl, because I remember, I'll never forget trying to work out that riff.
Classic songs, both of them, aren't they? Well,
Yeah.
the whole albums are Yeah,
Oh,
right from the get-go to let go.
That's 3.
I Love Your Love and Ways, Nina Simone. Wild as the Wind in general. That record's absolutely stunning. Great. You're the Cops and I'm the Crime, Davy Lane. And I can't go past. I'm going to stick with the Australian theme. And my favorite probably Australian band is You Am I. And so you can pick any, but Kathy's Clown maybe as well. 5, 11,
I think you have. And I've done 3, so I'll do You Think I'm Psycho by the Beasts.
Oh, yeah.
You seem like my choices. I like.
Well, look, it was very...
Psycho,
yeah.
and it's a cover.
Well, yeah, it is, but their version's definitive. I'm just kind of going back there, you know what I mean? Like talking about, because it's called
Trusty Chords.
Yeah, that's right, Trusty Chords. And my last one would be
Phil Jamieson's
no.
Kapow off his critically acclaimed solo.
I reckon that I'm going to go something by the Johnnies. What was the song? Motorbiking? No, what was it? Biking?
Johnny's Spencer.
Yeah.
So you've gone down the Spencer
Early,
and
like,
the
when
Beast
I was
of
a kid,
Bourbon,
when
and
I was
I've
a
gone
kid.
down Davy Lane and You Am I Road.
Yeah.
See the age difference, obviously.
Yeah.
Brilliant band, a lot of them. Actually, it was also very nice, actually, Phil, to hear you mention that Davy Lane song as well, because I haven't heard anyone mention that song in so long, but it's You're the Cops and I'm the Crime is absolutely stunning.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
He's got some skills, man. Like not now, and it sounds. I just listened to it the other day. It's very, very clever. It's too clever for his own good sometimes, but that song particularly, yeah. I mean, it's still so. Yeah, it's really vibrant. I went and saw him play recently at the Northcote Social Club. It's a solo. Yeah, I love Davey. He's obviously co-written a bunch of stuff with me as well over the years, and very fortunate to have such a creative, beautiful man in my life, and also just still creating his new records, Fire, as well. That should be out later this year. Really good.
Well, on the topic of creative, beautiful men, I should say, Phil Jamieson, Pat Davern, thank you very much for joining the Trusty Chords podcast today.
What a lovely link,
Been
Tyler.
a pleasure being on the Trusty Chord podcast, man.
Thanks, Tyler.
Thank you for listening to Trusty Chords. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd really appreciate it if you're able to like, follow, share, and review this podcast on whatever your preferred platform of choice may be. If you think this podcast should be heard by all and sundry, then giving it some support is the perfect way to ensure others hear it as well. If you don't think this podcast should be heard by others, well, I appreciate you waiting until the end to make up your mind. If you're eager to follow along on social media, you can find me on all the main channels like Instagram and Facebook, Trusty Chords Podcast, which is all one word. Over on Twitter, you can find me at Trusty Chords Pod for reasons that I've outlined bitterly already. There's also a blog for this podcast over on my own website, which is tylerjenke.com. That's TYLERJENKE/Trusty Chords Podcast, all one word. That's where you can find entries on each episode, along with the artists, albums, and songs chosen by guests each week, along with the accompanying playlist. You can also find a link to the Buy Me a Coffee platform where you can swing me a few dollars to support this podcast if you feel so inclined. As always, there's no obligation, but I always appreciate it. And of course, thanks to everyone for sending through messages of support each week. You're all lovely, and I wish I could thank you all individually. I mean, I can, but I don't want to keep everyone waiting for the end of this podcast, which is coming, by the way. Lastly, I need to thank Phil Jamieson and Pat Davern for being such wonderful guests this week. I've interviewed them both previously, and they're honestly two of my favourite interview subjects, so what a wonderful opportunity this was to have a chat for this podcast. I also need to express my gratitude to the wonderful Em at On The Map PR for helping organise this chat as well. But once again, thank you kindly for listening, and I hope to see you all again next week as I continue to celebrate music and those that create it.